So this is the collection here of what we're gonna do today. Welcome to day 3 of the XRT build series, where we focus on suspension. Why? It's got some weight. Grab this, grab these, upgrades. So from the bottom up, we got the shock perches from Vidavon. And then of course we got the stiffer springs from Vidavon, which they don't have a spring rate, so they're just considered stronger springs. And then we've got the Traxxas titanium rods, which are just titanium coated. They're still steel. And then we move up and we've got the M2C pistons, which are made out of better plastic. And of course, we've got Vidavon's shock caps, which are absolutely beautiful. All of this going in means we need to figure out what kinds of fluids we're putting in. And so 70 mil would be the place my mind went, but I think that might be a bit too stiff. So we're gonna go with 50 to start, and we might need to move to 60, but we'll see how everything goes. Let's just get into it. Thing is sitting pretty nice. Suspension is still really good right out of the box. However, because we're gonna be sending it and because we're adding so much weight to it, we do need to adjust everything. So let's take the wheels off. Boom, looking fresh. Let's pop this over here. I love how big these shocks are. Just very satisfying. We got our tools out, our shocks out, and we got some gloves on. So let's jump into it. So I'm gonna pull these apart and I'm gonna prep what we have here, and then I'm going to drain them so that we can fill them back up. So we're gonna prep our shock rods with our perches and get this all set up. Take these off, Loctite. Now the M2C pistons come with an O-ring that supposedly help with how they operate. So we're gonna have to completely break these down and drain them in order to put everything in. So let's do that now. Drain cup, pop these open. Okay, let that sit upside down for a little bit. We're gonna disassemble the piston and the shaft. 7 mil hex. There we go. Wanna make sure we get this washer out. If we compare the two, one has a slight difference in the way the holes work around the edges there, as well as the O-ring. That'll be interesting to test and see how well they work. So we're gonna take our new titanium rod, we're gonna feed that in. We're gonna get our washer. I'm just gonna pop it on there. This in, nicely seated. And screw it in. Yeah, smooth action. Perch. This cap comes with an O-ring and this cap comes with a bladder. Okay, so we're gonna fill this up with 50 600 CST. Brand new one over here in case we need it. And sender. Make sure that there's no air bubbles in there. You can see that right there. We wanna push it in and out ever so slightly just to see. Sometimes pushing it in and out itself can create the air bubbles, but we just wanna double check. So if you just wait a few minutes, these air bubbles will rise and pop, as you can see there. Got a little old diff cap, and I'm just gonna pop it in there and let that sit for a few minutes while we do the next one. After 3 minutes, there's essentially no bubbles left. Pop our bladder on. Okay, we're gonna grab one of our new shocks. So there's our first shock. Whew, and that feels good. That's gonna work a lot better when we're doing big bash sessions. I probably wouldn't use it if I'm just playing around doing small stuff. I would maybe stick to the original springs here, or maybe something in between this, because this is very soft, and I really have to put some effort in, right? Whereas this one just flattens itself almost. So really all we're doing here is trying to make sure that it can handle the big jumps. Number 2. Let's see, let's get dangerous. How high can we go? Oh my God. Oh, geez, there we go. That added a lot of air bubbles, so don't do that. A tiny bit more. All right, let's let that one sit for a few minutes. Oh, see, there's a major, oh, there it goes. Let's see how that happened. So now we need quite a bit more. These come with O-rings, but I prefer the bladder. I could be wrong in doing this, but it's just, I've had good success with it, so I'm gonna stick with it. Stick the bladder in there. See, when I apply the same pressure, the spring rate is way different. I think the spring rate in the front stock is 2.3 and in the rear is 3.7. Now, Vidavon does not provide a spring rate, but they are very strong. You can tell that they're very well made. Okay, so one's more tightly wound, but softer. The middle one is a medium spring, and the last one is certainly a very, very stiff spring. So we may want to go with all medium springs, but we're going to try out the strong ones for now because the completed one feels exactly like what I envisioned. So for just regular driving, sort of on flat, it might not be the best, but I think for big jumps, it's going to be better. In fact, the weak spot is no longer going to be the shocks, it's going to be the shock tower, which is plastic. So might have to address that somehow, or just have a couple of replacements on hand. Now, I'm a little worried that these will end up being bouncy, but on the other hand, knowing how big of jumps and how heavy the truck is going to be, I think these will be pretty good. So we'll have to find out, and we'll have to see if we want to tune it a bit better. But let's clean up the workbench and get ready for install. So the shock retainer is at its minimum engagement. So that's how much bigger the shocks are, which doesn't give us much room to use the retainer that Vidavon gives us. It's just too big, right? So if we had the X-Max with the shock body that's bigger, we could add that in, but we don't. So I'm getting pretty excited. So let's just put this in. Oh, that feels so good. Whoop. Now the shocks are in, looking fresh. This is so far really good, and we can of course crank down the compression, see what we get from that. But right now, I am very happy. So let's slap on some wheels and do a little drop test. Boom. Once we add some batteries, and once we add 1100 kV motor, and once we add the ESC, and then all the other little bits and pieces, it definitely sits at the correct ride height. So that's a little bit more of what it will be. So we went with 50 weight fluid in this truck, but you could go 60. I think that would work, but 70 might be a little too much. So it feels like it could have like a slight bit less rebound, but that's okay because we don't have all of this other stuff in the truck yet. Once we get tuning, for sure I'm gonna do an update video because I feel like the shocks are so important on a truck like this. because of how big it is and the size of jumps that we're gonna be doing and the speed we're gonna be running it at. So, but we won't know till we try it. Tomorrow we get to install all the electronics. So if you got something out of this video, hit that like button, comment down below, get subscribed because we coming in hot with more electronics, and you know we're going to bash test this thing. Stay tuned. Peace.